So it's 11:59 p.m.
Right.
and you are lying in bed just staring at the ceiling when you suddenly feel this massive surge of inspiration.
Oh, I know this feeling.
You make these incredibly grand, sweeping promises to yourself, You declare with absolute certainty that tomorrow is the day everything changes.
Tomorrow is the day.
Exactly. You're going to wake up at 5 a.m., you're going to run 5 miles, you're going to read a book instead of scrolling on your phone.
Good luck with that.
Right. And you're finally going to become this highly organized, disciplined person.
Mm-hmm.
But then, the sun comes up, your alarm goes off, and it is like a completely different, much lazier person has taken over your body.
A very tired person.
Yeah, you hit snooze and your brain instantly decides that actually tomorrow would definitely be a much better day to start being a superhero.
Always tomorrow.
Welcome to the Deep Dive Learner. Today is Sunday, August 16th, 2026, and we're looking at why your brain actively sabotages your best intentions and how to permanently fix it.
Yeah, and we're pulling our insights today from a really fascinating transcript from the audio series English Practice World.
Such a good source.
It really is. And the mission of this analysis is, well, it's ambitious, but it's incredibly practical. We're going to unpack how to stop treating discipline as this exhausting daily battle.
Or like a form of self-punishment.
Exactly. Self-punishment. We're going to look at how to actually train the brain to, believe it or not, enjoy doing the difficult things.
But before we can train the brain, we kind of have to dismantle a major myth that the source material points out right out of the gate.
Yeah, the big one.
There is this pervasive cultural idea that disciplined people simply have a magical surplus of willpower.
Like they're just born with it.
Right. We tend to imagine that the people who wake up at 5 in the morning to run in the freezing cold do so because they are inherently wired to love it.
Or that they wake up flooded with motivation.
Yes, exactly.
But the text makes it clear that this assumption is just completely false.
Totally false.
True discipline has absolutely nothing to do with feeling motivated, and it certainly does not mean you possess some superhuman battery of willpower.
So what is it then?
Well, true discipline is simply the learned skill of taking action when motivation is entirely absent.
Wow.
It is the understanding that the feeling of wanting to do the hard thing might never arrive.
And choosing to take the step anyway.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if discipline isn't about raw willpower, why does taking that initial action feel so incredibly painful?
That's the real question.
Like, why do we resist good habits with such intensity? The source has this hilarious, highly specific anecdote that I think perfectly captures this resistance.
Well, the cleaning one.
Yes. It describes the moment you realize you need to clean your entire room.
Yeah.
The task is big, and suddenly your brain gets unbelievably creative in finding an exit strategy.
It really does.
Your brain suggests a quick, harmless 5-minute phone break.
Just 5 minutes.
Right. And before you know it, 30 minutes have vanished, and you are deep down a rabbit hole watching a video of a cat figuring out how to open a refrigerator.
We've all been there.
It's just so specific, but so true.
What's fascinating here is that your brain is not broken.
Really, it feels broken.
I know, but it is operating exactly as evolution designed it. Our brains are, as the text describes, professional comfort seekers.
Professional comfort seekers. I love that.
Yeah, if we look at this from an evolutionary biology standpoint, human survival depended on conserving calories for millions of years.
So we're hardwired to be lazy.
Essentially, yes. The brain evolved to be a highly efficient energy-saving machine. Given a choice between an immediate low-effort reward—
like sitting on a soft couch watching an entertaining video.
Exactly, and a distant, high-effort reward.
Like exercising for long-term cardiovascular health.
Right. Biology demands you take the couch. The distant future is an abstract concept. The calories saved by sitting on the couch are immediate and real.
That makes perfect sense. I was thinking about this, and it feels like there is an internal conflict happening between two entirely different operating systems.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, so on one hand, you have the rational adult, which I imagine correlates to the prefrontal cortex, trying to plan out your 6-month health metrics and career goals. And then on the other hand, you have this impatient toddler, maybe the basal ganglia or the amygdala, that simply wants an immediate hit of dopamine right now.
Right now.
And you cannot just yell at a 2-year-old to try harder. You can't explain a long-term development plan to a toddler and expect them to care.
They do not care about your 6-month plan.
Not at all. If you try to force them, they just throw a massive tantrum, which in adults looks a lot like procrastination or anxiety.
That mapping of the brain's anatomy to the toddler analogy is incredibly accurate.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The prefrontal cortex is the slow, analytical part of the brain that sets the ambitious goal to clean the room or run the marathon.
No.
But the basal ganglia, which regulates our habits and immediate reward-seeking behaviors, is the toddler pulling you toward the cat video.
The cat opening the fridge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you throw your hands up and say, I am just not a disciplined person, you are essentially getting mad at the toddler for acting exactly like a toddler.
That's so unfair to the toddler.
It is. The goal of true discipline isn't to use brute force to overpower that primitive alarm system. The goal is to bypass it entirely.
Okay, so if my brain is evolutionarily hardwired to conserve energy and reject those long-term goals, trying to use brute force willpower is basically fighting millions of years of human biology.
A fight you will usually lose.
Right. So how do we actually sneak past that toddler defense mechanism?
Well, the source suggests we have to radically shrink the hurdle.
Or shrink the hurdle.
Yeah, we have to lower the barrier to entry so much that the brain simply does not register enough friction to trigger resistance.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice?
Instead of planning a 1-hour intense workout or a 2-hour language study session, which causes the basal ganglia to flood your system with resistance signals, you give the brain a ridiculously tiny first step.
You just make it tiny.
Exactly. You stop making the initiation of the task so monumental.
I have to push back on this a little bit, though.
Okay, go for it.
Because when I first read that section, my immediate thought was about the actual real-world utility of this advice. If my goal is to get in shape, and I tell myself to exercise for just 5 minutes, or if my goal is to read 50 books and I tell myself to read exactly 2 pages.
That sounds useless.
It seems mathematically useless. 5 minutes of jumping jacks is not going to alter my physical health.
Right.
It feels like I am just pretending to be disciplined without putting in the actual work required to see results.
And that's a very common reaction. It seems mathematically useless until you factor in the physics of behavioral momentum.
Behavioral momentum.
Yeah, which the Thorth uses to counter that exact skepticism. The hardest part of any habit is not doing the work itself. It is the transition from a state of rest to a state of action.
Overcoming the inertia.
Exactly. In physics, activation energy is the minimum amount of energy required to start a chemical reaction.
Okay.
In human behavior, overcoming the initial friction of just putting on your running shoes is where your energy expenditure is highest.
Oh, because once the shoes are on, you're halfway there.
Right. Once you do 5 minutes, an object in motion stays in motion. You realize you are already outside, your heart rate is already up, and you might as well keep going.
So that 5 minutes naturally bleeds into 20 minutes.
Exactly. Those 2 pages effortlessly become a whole chapter. You are not tricking yourself into doing less. You are tricking your brain into starting.
Because every single decision you make, even just deciding where your running socks are or what playlist to listen to, burns glucose.
Yes.
You are draining your limited daily allowance of executive function before you even take a single step.
Which is dangerous.
Which connects perfectly to the source's point about lowering decision fatigue by preparing your environment in advance.
Preparing the environment is key.
Right. If you put your workout clothes right next to the bed the night before, or place the book directly on your pillow, you remove 3 or 4 micro decisions that the toddler brain could use as an excuse to quit.
You are intentionally designing an environment where discipline becomes the path of least resistance.
The easy choice.
Right. You remove the decision-making process entirely, so the prefrontal cortex does not have to fight for control the moment you wake up.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Clearing that tiny hurdle and doing the 5-minute task isn't just about tricking yourself into getting a little bit of work done.
No, it goes much deeper.
Something much deeper happens internally that changes how you view yourself. The text emphasizes collecting small wins.
Small wins are everything.
And again, someone might look at 10 minutes of studying and think it is a waste of time. But psychologically, 10 minutes is infinitely more than 0 because of the profound impact it has on your self-image.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of behavioral psychology, we are looking at a fundamental identity shift.
Identity shift.
There is a well-established concept called self-perception theory.
Oh, what's that?
It posits that we do not always act because of who we are. Frequently, we decide who we are based on how we observe ourselves acting.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Your brain is constantly watching your body's physical actions to gather evidence about your core identity.
So if my body physically gets up and walks for 10 minutes every single day, my brain observes that objective evidence.
Exactly.
It experiences a sort of cognitive dissonance if I keep calling myself lazy while my body is literally out walking.
Right. The data doesn't match the story.
Yeah. To resolve that conflict, the brain has to rewrite its own self-image to match the physical data. I stop being someone who is trying to get in shape, and my brain recalibrates to say, I guess we are a person who exercises regularly now.
Yes.
Yeah.
You are providing undeniable proof to yourself that you can keep a promise.
Which flips our standard cultural belief about motivation completely upside down.
It really does. We typically think we need to feel motivated first, then we will take action, and finally, we will become the kind of person who gets things done.
We just sit around waiting to feel inspired.
But the text argues the precise opposite mechanism. Taking a small action creates a small win.
And that small win builds self-trust.
Exactly. And that resulting self-trust becomes the motivation that drives you tomorrow. Action precedes motivation. You create the feeling through the behavior.
But rewriting an identity takes time.
It does.
While the brain is busy gathering that evidence over weeks and months, the toddler is still going to want its candy today.
The toddler is always hungry.
Right. If those first few weeks of tiny actions feel like pure misery, the toddler is going to win and you will quit.
Almost certainly.
To keep the brain engaged in the short term, the source highlights the absolute necessity of actively rewarding the action by pairing it with an existing pleasure.
You have to artificially link a dopamine hit to the difficult task until the task itself becomes intrinsically rewarding.
And the text offers highly practical examples of this.
Right, like if you have a morning study session you are dreading, you pair it with making your absolute favorite fancy cup of coffee that you only allow yourself to drink while studying.
Oh, that's smart.
Or if you need to exercise, you only let yourself listen to your favorite podcast while you are doing it.
You are leveraging dopamine, which I understand isn't just a pleasure chemical, it is a learning chemical.
Exactly. When dopamine is released while you are studying or exercising, it carves new neural pathways that essentially highlight that behavior.
It teaches the brain that this specific activity is valuable and worth repeating. You shift the entire internal monologue from, I have to exercise today, to, I get to listen to my podcast today.
It is a brilliant physiological hack.
It really is.
However, the text issues a critical warning here about what it calls a carefully planned disaster.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it is entirely possible to choose the wrong kind of reward and completely sabotage the neurological progress you are making.
This part is so relatable. The warning is clear. Do not let the reward destroy the progress.
Right.
Exercising for 30 minutes does not mean you have earned the right to eat an entire cake or spend the next 5 hours scrolling mindlessly on your phone.
No, it does not.
If your reward undoes the physical or psychological benefits of the habit, you create massive cognitive dissonance.
You end up training your brain to merely endure the healthy habit simply to fund a destructive habit.
Which defeats the whole purpose.
Exactly. The goal is to find rewards that support the new identity, not contradict it. And importantly, those rewards do not always have to be external things you consume or purchase.
I have to be honest, when I read the part of the text about internal rewards, I was pretty skeptical.
Really? Yeah.
Well, the source suggests taking a literal pause after you finish the 5-minute task and saying out loud, I did it, I kept my promise today. My first instinct was that this sounded a bit cheesy. I wondered if talking to yourself like a motivational speaker actually does anything on a neurological level, or if it's just positive thinking fluff.
It absolutely works on a neurological level, and it comes back to how the brain processes satisfaction.
Oh, really?
Yes. When you verbally acknowledge a completed task, you are forcing the prefrontal cortex to consciously register a success.
Okay.
You are interrupting the brain's default mode network, which is always rushing to the next anxiety or task, and manually triggering a small dopamine release.
So you're forcing your brain to notice that you did a good job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It connects the act of discipline with a concrete feeling of satisfaction rather than a lingering feeling of suffering. It is essentially a biological high five that wires the brain for repetition.
A biological high five. I love that.
Yeah.
So we have successfully tricked the toddler into starting by shrinking the hurdle, and we have wired the brain to actually enjoy the process using dopamine and conscious recognition.
We're making progress.
Now we face the challenge of longevity. How do we stretch these isolated days into consistent, weeks and months.
The holy grail of habits.
Exactly. The source introduces an incredibly simple visual tool, the don't break the chain method.
It's a classic for a reason.
You pick your one tiny habit, you complete it daily, and you mark a big red X or a check mark on a physical calendar on your wall.
A physical calendar.
Right. I know this sounds almost too simple to be effective, but why is seeing a row of check marks so powerful for the human brain?
It taps deeply into a psychological principle known as loss aversion.
Loss aversion.
Right. Humans are highly visual creatures, and psychologically, we feel the pain of losing something much more intensely than we feel the pleasure of gaining something of equal value.
That makes sense.
So when you build a visual chain of 12 or 20 days on a calendar, that chain becomes an asset. It is physical proof of your new identity.
The psychological pain of seeing a blank space on that calendar, of breaking that visual streak, eventually overrides the physical friction of doing the 5-minute task.
Yes, you end up doing the habit just to protect the chain.
But, life is inherently chaotic.
Always.
Someone is going to get sick or have to travel unexpectedly or just have a day where absolutely everything goes wrong and their executive function is completely depleted. The chain is going to break.
This raises an important question about the difference between perfection and resilience.
Okay.
Most people view a broken chain as a complete systemic failure, which is why the text emphasizes what I consider the ultimate golden rule of consistency.
And what's that?
The rule is this: if you miss one day, do not miss two.
Missing one single day is just a statistical reality of living a human life. It is a meaningless blip in the data.
Precisely.
The real failure, the actual danger, is what happens in your head the day after. It is looking at the broken chain, feeling this overwhelming wave of guilt, and deciding that since the perfect streak is ruined, there is no point in trying anymore.
Guilt is the true trap here.
It really is.
When you feel guilty about missing a habit, guilt acts as a highly negative emotion. And what does the toddler brain do when it experiences a negative emotion?
It freaks out.
It immediately seeks comfort to soothe itself. So feeling guilty about missing your 5-minute workout actually drives you straight to the couch to scroll on your phone to escape the feeling of guilt.
Wow, that is a vicious cycle.
It is. Real discipline isn't about maintaining a flawless record for 3 years. True discipline is defined by the speed of your recovery.
The speed of your recovery.
Yes, it is the ability to drop the habit, recognize it without heavy self-judgment, and pick it back up the very next day to start a brand new chain.
It is exactly like dropping your phone. If you drop your phone and it gets a tiny scratch, you pick it up and keep using it.
Right.
You don't look at the scratch, shrug, and then stomp on the phone until it shatters just because it isn't perfect anymore.
That would be absurd.
You just pick it back up. Tomorrow is day 1 of the new chain. And to ensure that you, the learner, can pick this up immediately, we want to bridge the gap between knowing the neuroscience and actually applying it.
Time for the challenge.
Yes, we are issuing the 7-day discipline challenge directly from the source material.
As we set the parameters for this challenge, keep the core philosophy in mind. We are not asking you to become superhuman overnight.
Please don't.
Please do not try to completely overhaul your entire life
Yeah.
or run 10 kilometers tomorrow morning.
Here are the 3 strict rules for your challenge. Number 1, choose one truly tiny habit, and I mean ridiculously small.
Tiny.
Read exactly 2 pages of a book. Exercise for exactly 5 minutes. Write exactly 3 sentences in a journal.
Very doable.
Number 2, anchor it to a specific existing action in your day. Do not vaguely say, I will do it sometime tomorrow.
That never works.
Never. Say, I will do this immediately after I brush my teeth, or right after I pour my morning coffee.
Perfect.
Number 3, make it visible. Put a physical piece of paper or a calendar on your wall and manually mark it when you are done. A physical calendar provides tactile feedback that a digital app simply cannot match.
It has to be physical. And for these next 7 days, your only goal is to show up.
Just show up.
You do not need to execute the habit with perfect form, and you certainly do not need to feel joy in your heart while doing it. You simply need to prove to your brain that you can cross the starting line 7 consecutive times, especially on the days you really do not want to.
So what does this all mean?
It means it's time to start.
It means you have to start today, whatever day of the week today happens to be for you. I know the overwhelming temptation is to say, this is brilliant neuroscience, I will organize my life and start fresh on Monday.
Always Monday.
I am explicitly warning you against that. We all know exactly how the I'll start on Monday story ends. It ends with another midnight motivation session that evaporates the second the sun comes up.
If we distill this entire deep dive down to its absolute core, it requires a single, profound mindset shift from the source.
Okay, what is it?
You have to stop waiting for the perfect feeling. You have to stop checking your internal temperature every morning and asking, do I feel like doing this right now?
Because your evolutionary biology guarantees the answer will almost always be no.
Exactly. Instead, you need to start asking yourself one incredibly simple question. What is the absolutely smallest action I can take right now?
We really hope this custom deep dive has armed you with the actual mechanics of human behavior to stop fighting yourself every morning.
Yeah.
To realize that discipline isn't about perfection, it is simply about consistent, tiny progress that bypasses your brain's alarm system.
It really is that simple.
But before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over long after this audio stops playing.
Ooh,
We spent all this time today exploring how intentionally choosing tiny positive actions builds your identity through self-perception, teaching your brain to eventually enjoy discipline.
Mm.
But since your brain is constantly watching you, constantly learning, and always seeking comfort, what kind of identity are your unconscious daily habits? The tiny, effortless things you do on autopilot, like picking up your phone the second you feel bored currently building for you.
Oh, wow. When you realize that every single action is a vote for who you are, those unconscious autopilot behaviors take on a whole new, much heavier weight.
Something to definitely think about the next time you instinctively reach for your phone. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today. We will catch you on the next one.